talk about the not-so-secret value of SEO podcasts, podcast transcription. So, quick confession, I have a slightly unhealthy obsession with all things Mario Brothers. I might have even worn a Nintendo shirt on the first date with my current partner. Notice I said current. I really love the challenge that Nintendo games, Mario games especially, bring, like being able to see if I can beat an entire game in one sitting or trying to find secret levels. And I think this kind of translates to my love for SEO as well, trying to problem solve what's wrong with the client website and then also being able to test new things and see what actually works. I heard Brittany Muller, senior SEO scientist at Moz, speak last year at Tech SEO Boost about machine learning, and she used podcast transcription as a real-world example. I got strangely excited about this and started to look for ways that I could start implementing this with clients and see what the results were. So today, I want to talk about the SEO benefits of podcast transcripts. Just a note, you can do this with anything that has an audio component, so webinar transcripts, video transcripts, anything like that. I want to walk you through the process of how to actually do this and then show you the proof that it does actually work. So diving into the SEO benefits, obviously content is important, and then we want to know that Google actually cares about this. So maybe you have some content on your website that used to perform really well for you, it used to drive a lot of traffic, and it's just kind of stale. Taking a podcast transcript, giving that content some new life, is a great way to use this in practice for your current sites. Maybe on the flip side, maybe you're video blogging, maybe you're currently podcasting, but you're leaving all of that content on the existing platform. So it's just hanging out on YouTube, it's just hanging out on a blogging or a podcast subscription service, and you're not actually using that on your website. That's a content gold mine. Take that content, turn it into written content on your website. Podcast indexation. So a couple weeks ago at Google I/O, Google announced that they're actually indexing podcast search result in the search results now, which is huge for anybody that's been podcasting for a long time. I love Dax Shepard. He was amazing in Parenthood. He's super funny and Bless This Mess, but he also has a really great podcast, The Armchair Expert. So if you Google Dax Shepard podcast, this is what you see in the search result now. Try it out on any of your favorite podcasts, and you should see them popping up no matter what platform they're being hosted on. So another component of why this is helpful, we all know voice search is super big right now. Most of us probably have an Alexa or a Google Home. Google's even testing out Google Homes for our cars, which is slightly terrifying. Yeah, I know. Not like we need to multitask anymore. So having content on your website to help drive and show up for voice search results is even more important. These stats are a little scary because it's almost 2020. So having that content that increases your chance of showing up in featured snippets and showing up for voice search results is just another benefit of having those podcast transcripts on your site. And then one more thing why this matters to Google is accessibility. So obviously you want your website to be accessible to Google, but you also want it to be accessible to anyone else who wants to find it. If you're doing podcasts and somebody can't actually hear those podcasts, you're missing out on a huge demographic that can't access the content that you're producing. So let's get into how to do this in 8 easy steps. So step 1, get that audio file, MP3, MP4, whatever you have, get that file and get it transcribed. So I really like Temi and Otter AI. They're both pretty similar. You upload your audio file, you get the video, you get the text transcription. You do have to spend a little time entering in the speaker transitions or who the different speaker is, and then cleaning that text up to make sure it's grammatically correct. Keyword research, obviously you want that content to be ranking, so you need to be researching what the search volume is around the target keywords for that content. You want to look at the people also ask search results, see what other content is popping up, and then getting a competitive snapshot. So who's ranking for what you're identifying as the target keywords, who's showing up in those people also ask search results, and then who's showing up in those featured snippets. And then also pay attention to, are your competitors putting transcripts on their sites? If they're not, this is one way to get one step ahead of your competitors. And then obviously you want that transcript on your website. So this is an example of the Davis Phinney Foundation. They were a nonprofit that I got to test this out on. You can see they've already got the podcast on their site. They've got a link to download the podcast transcript, and then they've got a call to action to send them to the bottom, further down the page, where we have the podcast transcript. A lot of people are worried, well, isn't this going to make my page look clunky? I've got a lot of extra content on there. Put it in an accordion. Google can index content that's in an accordion, so it's a lot cleaner way to have that content on your site, but you know it's still accessible. Then we obviously want to optimize the content to get the most value from it. So making sure those target keywords that we talked about earlier are in your metadata, they're in your image alt tags, and that you're using the right schema markup so that Google can really find that content. Speaking of Google finding that content, we've done all this work, so now make sure that you're going into Google Search Console, you're having them recrawl that page. If you added a new page, make sure you're adding that content to that URL to your sitemap, and then promote that content on social media, any other places that you're promoting your content. And the last and final step, you've gone to all this hard work, you want to really track your progress. So make sure you're annotating in Google Analytics when you added that content to your website. Pay attention to the search results. As marketers, we sometimes get distracted by all these other tools that tell us data for us, but make sure you actually spend some time in the SERPs and look at how your content is performing, where it might not be. And some real-world examples of how this has played out. So with the Davis-Finney Foundation, this is data about 4 months out after we added the blog post transcripts to podcast transcripts to 2 blog posts. I hypothesized that we'd see some lift in organic traffic. We didn't really, which was a little surprising, but we did see some increases in some on-page metrics, which was good to see. So the blue trend line, it's probably a little bit hard to see in the back, but the blue trend line is page views for the month after adding the content or the transcripts, and the orange line is the month previous. And there's some pretty large jumps up in the first month after, while the month before was pretty static. Some other stats that excited me, most exciting was 2 keywords that saw a lift of 35 to 70 places in the search engine results, which got them to page 1 for those 2 keywords. I reached out on Twitter a couple weeks ago, and Andrew from Optimizy sent me some data from his site, and he saw some similar trends, mostly improvement in on-page metrics, but coming from organic traffic, which was interesting. So just some more proof that across different industries, this is seeing some results. And then lastly, This American Life, a podcast that's always super relevant as far as what's going on in the world, has been actually ahead of the game and has been doing this on their own website since 2011. And you can see it's obviously paying off for them. Take a look at this stat, just for a second. 16% revenue increase just by adding transcripts to a website. So if you're not adding transcripts from copy that you're already producing to your website, that's money that you're leaving on the table. So take advantage of this. It's something super easy and actionable that you can do. And just like the goal of Mario Kart to be number 1, as marketers, we want to be number 1 in the search results as well. Thank you.